Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. The show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's repeated on Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. as well, Eastern Standard Time.
You can also hear us on our YouTube channel. We archive most of the shows. And, of course, on Podomatic. Podomatic.com, and just pump in Camp Constitution, and you will find our state channel. It's brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. Next year's camp will run from July 28th to August 3rd. And at this point, I'd like to bring on our guest, Malena Chastion. I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
You're good. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, we'd love to have you on. Just a few days ago, there was a function in the northeast corner of Connecticut, referred to as the Quiet Corner. It was the first annual, I hope, Freedom Festival in Pig Roast, where you spoke. And by the way, that video, I recently uploaded it on our YouTube channel. And I was very impressed by what you had to say. And I think I've watched a few of your blogs in the past, or listened to them. And so tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, I originally founded Live for Liberty about 2 years ago. I've been an activist in our Patriot movement for several years now, and I just decided that things weren't going exactly the way that I think we wanted them to, so I felt that I needed to get active. So I originally founded Live for Liberty, and that's basically an organization to help veterans. We help to bring awareness to PTSD. We help to fight for veterans reform. It's a organization that supports our veterans, because we truly feel that our veterans go and fight for our freedoms, and it's our job when they come home to support them. So from Live for Liberty, I kind of branched out a little bit and made a second area of Live for Liberty, where we do a lot of political activism. So I started the Live for Liberty show about a year ago. So I started doing that every Thursday night, 7 p.m. We go live on Facebook and YouTube as well. And after being in this Patriot movement for a while now, and being part of several Patriot groups, to include 3% groups and a couple other ones, what I saw was that there's a lot of men that run these organizations, and which I think is fantastic. But we're seeing an uprise of this feminist movement, and what they're pushing in society is not necessarily something that I'm comfortable with for myself, for my children. And I know that a lot of other Patriot women feel the same way. And I truly felt that in order to combat this new age feminist movement, we really needed to create an organization that is run by Patriot women, strong Patriot women, and basically has an all-woman Patriot group to stand up against the feminist movement, among some other things, this hard gun control that they're pushing for as well. So I founded Daughters of Liberty. So I'm super excited about it. We've got many members. I just started this not that long ago, and the membership is through the roof. Everybody's super excited and joining. We've got national leadership started, so all of our positions are filled. We've got women coming up, filling state lead positions, and we're actually starting to build some state chapters and then breaking down into zones already in such a short amount of time. So just kind of tells you how excited these Patriot women are to get their voice out and to stand together against what we're seeing. The perfect example is what we're seeing, what's happening to Brett Kavanaugh right now. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I came up with Daughters of Liberty. It's very significant because Daughters of Liberty, I modeled it after our Strong Patriot sisters that started Daughters of Liberty during the Revolutionary War. And there's many strong patriot women back during that era that were very key people in our independence from the British. So a couple famous names are Abigail Adams and Martha Washington. There's a lot more. But these strong patriot women, they not only boycotted British-made goods, but they rallied against unfair taxes. They assisted soldiers in the war by, repairing their uniforms, making new uniforms, helping with first aid. And then what a lot of people don't realize is that the Daughters of Liberty actually helped to plan the Boston Tea Party. And while their sons and husbands were off fighting the war, it was these strong patriotic women that were left behind to defend their farms and their children. So they were pretty strong at that point, because it wasn't unheard of that undesirables could come onto the farm. So Daughters of Liberty is a national organization, like I said earlier, for patriot women and run solely by patriot women. So we will stand nationwide in all 50 states. We proudly stand for our Constitution, for our Second Amendment. Equality is big for us. We stand for women's rights. What's a little bit different from the feminist movement is that we also stand for men's rights. We believe that everyone should have rights equally. We're very passionate about our country, our flag, of course, our soldiers and vets, and our children. I can speak for myself in telling you that the reason I do everything that I do with all of the activism that I do is for my children and my future generations, because I want to be able to hand them a country that I grew up in, with the same liberties that are granted to us by birth that I had growing up. And what we're seeing right now is that, and I think everybody can agree, and that's either the left or the right can both agree, that our country is facing some dark times. Our country is so divided, and our government is divided. There's a lot of bipartisan going on. Nobody's wanting to work with one another. And if we spread past the borders of the United States, we can also see that, the world is in massive unrest right now. If we dial it back down to the United States, what concerns me greatly is our streets are not safe, our communities are not safe, and that's especially for women and children. As we lax on our borders, and we've seen this call for open borders, which is just not the right way to go. We're a country of law. We have immigration law. There's reasons why laws are in place. But as we see these more lax on our borders, we have more gang members infiltrating. Gang members like MS-13. We have illegals that have come into our country and then been deported because they've been arrested for assaults and rape and robberies, and then it's just like a ping pong ball. They just come right back in. And another thing we're seeing across our country are a lot of sanctuary cities in a lot of states. It's not just California anymore. New York has a lot of sanctuary cities. I happen to live in Massachusetts. Boston is actually a sanctuary city. And sex trafficking is at an all-time high. Women are literally disappearing from parking lots. One of the other things that I do is work with Vets for Child Rescue, where we help to expose sex trafficking of children and help to bring awareness. And then we also provide immense support for those children who are rescued. So I'm very proud of that as well. But, from from the sex trafficking and the kidnapping, there's a lot of violence in the streets due to a difference in politics. We've seen riots. We've seen, just going to an everyday rally, people like Antifa show up. They start hitting people in the back of the head with bite locks. And it's very unnerving for women at this point in time. So Daughters of Liberty was formed partially for that as well, to train women in the use of firearms. Safety and use go hand in hand, so those are very important. But we can also help women get the training that they need so that they can go out and then get their concealed carry. Because carrying as a woman is so very important. We're being bombarded with all of these stories of sexual assault. And Daughters of Liberty, we don't want women to be victims. We want them to be empowered. We want them to stand strong, and we want to give them the tools that's required in order to defend themselves. So Second Amendment is very important. Concealed carry is very important. But we also offer classes in self-defense as well. So there are some states like Massachusetts and New York and California where it's all very difficult to get a concealed carry permit. It's not impossible, but you have to jump through some hoops. So if you can't carry concealed because you don't have a permit, one of the other things that you can do is protect yourself through self-defense, as well as, there's knife classes. You can carry pepper spray as long as it's legal in your state. There's a lot of classes that we can teach you so that you don't have to be afraid, so that you can empower yourself and not have that fear. So Daughters of Liberty, we will do many things. We combat New Age feminism. Like I said in the beginning, we fight for liberties. Very important. We see our liberties kind of being under attack today. We stand to protect our Second Amendment. We rally for fair legislation, and I think that's a big difference between Daughters of Liberty and some other patriot groups, in that they do wondrous things with training, fantastic things with training, but they don't really like to get political. And I believe that in order for us to make a change, to make a difference in what's happening in this country right now, we have to get political. There's no way around it.
You were at the rally the other day, Saturday. It goes Monday at City Hall in Boston. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. I was really disheartened with a little bit about. I do a lot of preaching about people getting active. We have to get active. We have to get out in public. We have to fight fire with fire. So I desperately tried to get people to go down to Boston with me. So it was a anti-Kavanaugh rally, and I ended up having to go by myself. So I couldn't be as active or as oppositional as I would have liked to. But I went, and there was a lot of misinformation being spread in regard to Brett Kavanaugh. What really concerns me about this whole narrative is that there's no due process. So in this country, we're innocent until we're proven guilty. And unfortunately, for all Americans, but for a judge, he has not been found guilty of a crime, yet there were thousands and thousands of people down in Boston that had already deemed him guilty and painted him in a very poor light. And besides the mass proportion of people that went, that we can't seem to get on the right to come together to rally for our stances. What really strikes me with a big difference between the right and the left is that they were extremely organized and in a very short amount of time. So the reason why they did it in Boston was because Senator Flake was going to be in Boston meeting with Senator Warren. So he was actually in the building behind where the rally was taking place. So it was all about vote no for Kavanaugh. So it was a big demonstration to tell Flake to vote no. But they had only just found out that he was going to be in Boston. So to orchestrate something so organized was very impressive. They also had, Senator Markey was there, a lot of other politicians. And
Marty Walsh in Boston.
Correct. I'd really like to see some Republican senators, Republican governors do these types of demonstrations for us conservatives, for us libertarians, because you just don't see a lot of support from Republicans like you do Democrats. So it kind of leaves us feeling kind of alone, and it's very difficult to organize something that large.
One of my daughters goes to Liberty University, and they had 300 of their students go to D.C. in support of Kavanaugh. So that's refreshing to hear.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. That is great to hear. Now, I do know that Boston is a very liberal city, so that could account for the vast majority of people. It was just really unnerving to see how easily people are swayed by lies, how easily people are triggered, and how emotional they become, and how you can no longer rationally make a decision on something because there is so much emotion that's at play. And that's what I saw at the rally. There was I found out after that there was a few other patriots that were there. I didn't see them, but they were actually attacked. They were closer to the stage, and they were attacked by people. And Diana Ploss is a good friend of mine. She was there.
Yes, I know
Diana. She was
Diana.
live streaming as well. And people were rudely, literally putting signs in between her and her phone so that she couldn't be seen in her live feed. And it's a very aggressive group. I did oppose a couple times, but because I was by myself, you have to be careful with a crowd of thousands. But the minute you say something, it's just instantaneous hostility. And I really wish people could just calm down just a little bit and understand that there's two sides to every coin. And
well, I believe the biggest issue with Judge Kavanaugh has nothing to do with what he may have done or not have done 30 or 40 years ago, but the left is convinced that he will lead to the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Mhm.
And I think that's what brings out the hatred. Abortion is one of the major tenets of the Democrat Party and of the left, and that includes some Republicans too.
It's true. And, whenever anybody, and, there were a lot of people with a lot of signs about abortion. It was supposed to be all about Dr. Ford and the sexual assault.
That's right.
But there were many, many, many signs, for pro-abortion. And I know he's conservative, probably, obviously, much more than Justice Kennedy was. But Kavanaugh can't overturn Roe versus Wade unilaterally. It's a Supreme Court. And what I've talked about on my shows before is that the way that the government works is if, let's just say they overturned Roe versus Wade, it then goes back to the states.
That's right.
For a republic. And then citizens in that state can then vote on what is best for their state, and majority rules. And I don't really see where that is such a horrible idea. If you really need to have an abortion and you live in a state that has outlawed it, you can always, move or travel to another state where it may be legal. But this conception that he's going to overturn Roe versus Wade and there's going to be all of these, women who have died because of back alley abortions is just simply preposterous.
Well, one of the groups that was represented there was NARAL, National Association of Reproductive Rights. Actually, I think the man who founded it, Bernard Nathanson, had come out and became a pro-lifer and actually said that the numbers we gave about back alley abortions was a lie. He came full circle on that. But let's get back to the Daughters of Liberty. A few years ago, I had the honor of bringing Chris Ann Hall to Boston. She was a speaker at our camp, and she was this year. And we took a trip to the Granary Cemetery, where some of the founders are buried. And there was a lady dressed in colonial attire giving one of the tours. And some of these tour guides do a pretty good job. They're pretty consistent with the truth. But this lady wanted to give people the impression that women were second-class citizens, that they were exploited by their men, and they really had no significant role in the founding of our country. And Chris Ann Hall said she took strong exception to that. This woman was messing with the wrong lady, because Chris Ann Hall, much what you said earlier, mentioned the vital role that the women played or took in this war for independence. In fact, it was General Cornwallis that remarked, someone had said to him about the colonial soldiers, and he said, if we defeat the men, we still have the women to contend with, and it's impossible to beat them. So women have played a significant role. And, you know, I look at the modern Tea Party movements and other patriot movements, and I see a lot of women and sadly, not a whole lot of men.
A lot of men will migrate towards the 3% groups. Some go to, you know, into militias. I think that men are more attracted to the 3% groups because of the massive training that they get and how they train. And I think women enjoy that training very much. I think it's necessary. There's also a lot of prepping involved, which, you know, I think learning prepping is very necessary too. But I think it's in a woman's nature to be more of an activist. I think, you know, if you know any woman, they want results, and they want it now. And the way to get results is to stand up to our government, to tell them that what they're doing is disruptive, and they're absolutely dividing our country. And, you know, these feminists, I think what upsets me the most is that they say they speak for all women. Hillary Clinton says she speaks for all women, and they don't. There's a vast majority of patriot women out there that are not being represented. And I think women move towards activism that are going to get more results right now. And I know a lot of strong patriot women that have been really hustling, talking to everybody about voting red in November. And I just, on that note, I always like to follow it up with, don't just vote red. Make sure that you're not voting for a rhino. Make sure
That's
you
correct.
know what your candidate is standing for and what his platform is, because just writing, you know, voting red down the line isn't going to help us any if he's going to turn into a Democrat 6 months later.
Well, we have a classic rhino here in Massachusetts, Governor Baker, and it's really hard to put a lever for a man. He might as well have a D beside his name. He does everything he's basically a far leftist.
He absolutely is. Now, I'm originally from Florida. My husband's active duty Army, so we move around a lot. I'm actually new to the Massachusetts area, so I'm not as familiar with some of the controversies and scandals that Charlie Baker has been involved in the past. But Diana Ploss is such an amazing woman. She's filled me in on a lot of things, to include the Great Dig that happened over here in Massachusetts, and he's just not right for the state. We have enough, you know. I pray that Jeff Deal gets elected over Elizabeth Warren. I don't know how much more we can take of her, but between
I think the important thing for the People of Liberty movement is to educate the voters, reach out to people, network with people, because there's lots of us, and if we again getting together, working together, and that sometimes means that we have to put some of our differences aside. There are some things that are irreconcilable, but there might be minor issues, and we tend to be very doctrinaire, which is not a bad thing. But you might say, well, that person does it this way, so I want nothing to do with them. The left doesn't do that. The left is an amalgamation of individuals and organizations, and they work together, and they've been handing us defeat after defeat for many years. But this is the first time that I can recall a number of things that have been set back. Some of the Obamacares have been eroded. The transgenders in the military, Trump said no more of that. The transatlantic partnership was defeated. The Paris Accord, this unconstitutional program that would have cost us billions to address a non-issue, meanwhile destroying industry, was put on the back, what was scrapped. So these are good things that are happening, and the left can't tolerate it, and they've really become unglued.
It's true, and that that behavior is what I talked about in the beginning, how things just are not safe in the streets, and patriots will rattle off and if this happens, this is going to happen, but for the most part, I believe conservatives and patriots are pretty laid back when it comes to not really inciting a lot of violence. And you just find a lot of violence coming from the left. I think Antifa is a huge stain on the United States of America. And a lot of Antifa groups are saying if, things like if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed, they're going to wage war on the U.S. and, general violence everywhere. And I really think that they don't realize that at that point they'd be poking this sleeping bear. And I think, that there's a lot of conservatives that carry. We have a lot of veterans in this country that served our country, and I don't think they're going to let somebody just start shooting people in the streets. So they really need to think about what kind of war they're waging and on who, because it could go horribly wrong for.
Well, I heard a clever comment. They said that the other side doesn't know what bathroom to go into, and so I don't know how effective they'll be. But the bottom line would be martial law and more government control. That's what the aim is. And these Antifa people are nothing more than stupid cannon fodder. Mm-hmm. We have about a minute left. Can you tell the listeners how they might be able to get a hold of you or your organization?
Yes, absolutely. So Daughters of Liberty is on the web at daughtersofliberty.net. You can contact us there through our contact page. We're also on Facebook. You can find our page at Daughters of Liberty, and there's a dash, and then it's capital D, capital O, capital L for doll. So Daughters of Liberty -doll. And then we also have our members page. Because it's an active patriot group, you do have to be vetted to get in. But that's DOL